a racial complexion. In Ghana, talk to us about this relationship between capital and the reality of race.
Well, look, in Ghana, of course, we do not have exactly the same system in terms of the control of monopoly capital under the hands of an indigenous white group.
Okay.
But you can continue to see the link
Okay.
with the larger economic powers in Western Europe and in the United States. So,
Yeah.
although Ghana has got a far stronger involvement
Yeah.
of its own black entrepreneurs than we have in South Africa, there
Yeah.
still continues to what I would consider to be an unhealthy, strong relationship with the old colonial masters. And that is not just true for Ghana. It is true for almost every country
Yeah.
which has that kind of post-colonial history.
Okay.
And it is a long road to get out of that. And as I've indicated to you, I think it is only possible to get out of it if you take very deliberate decisions. If you simply allow the continuation of the status quo, it will take very long, if ever, to get that kind of balance of power that has established itself during the colonial period to be changed.
Okay. So let's look at the promise of independence.
Yes.
Obviously, there must have been some expectation.
Of course, there's huge expectations.
Yeah.
And Ghana, of course, was a critical country because of its history as a trailblazer in the nationalized and liberation of Africa.
That's right.
Very important, and Ghana played an important role.
Yeah. Now.
But we have to understand that the promise of liberation comes, as far as I'm concerned, on a two-track strategy.
Okay.
The one is the importance of the vote. So the democratization of the society, what we have called in South Africa the non-racial one-person, one-vote system. We've achieved that. In Ghana it has been achieved, and
we can call it
Africa
universal suffrage.
Yes, universal suffrage.
Okay.
What we haven't achieved is economic justice and the continuation of the exploitation of the majority of African people, not just in South Africa, but throughout the African continent. And the huge gap between rich and poor is a massive problem that we haven't yet managed to succeed to address, and it is certainly the challenge that we need to address.
Okay. So we are now in Kenya. And there's a conversation in Kenya whether the judiciary is actually a fourth state. What is your take?
In any country where the judiciary has the role as an independent judiciary, they had the right to take the decision that they did.
Okay.
And I think the government and the other institutions in Kenya should be lauded for having accepted that decision of the judiciary, because ultimately the independence of the judiciary is essential if you want to have a constitutionally driven state.
Yeah.
And in Kenya, that decision was passed by the courts that the particular election was declared to be not fair, and there had to be a rerun of the elections. That happened. I think it was a good day for constitutional democracy in Kenya, that decision of the courts was respected, and that the process that then unfolded itself. I cannot comment very much about the decisions of particular politicians to participate or not participate in the rerun of that election, but I think the constitutional independence of the courts and the prevalence of the decision of the court that was accepted is a good one, and we should respect the government of Kenya also to have accepted that outcome.
Democracy is a colonial project, the way we know it and the way it's practiced. It's premised on certain fundamentals that may not exist in many of the post-colonial states.
Yes.
Do you agree that one of the keystone of this democratic project is the individual who must assert his or her rights. So you have a Bill of Rights, and on the other hand, you have responsibilities that you must discharge as a citizen.
Yes.
Do you see this intersection in most of the African states?
Absolutely. And it is a complex intersection.
Okay.
Because in African communities, the community and the strength of the community is very prevalent.
Okay.
So what we see in democracy, as you quite correctly say, is the prevalence and the emphasis on the individual, and the individual vote, the individual decision, etc. And there is sometimes a complex interaction between the role of the community and communal decisions and the decision of the individual. Difficult. And the important thing is, I think it's still going to take us time in Africa to develop our own form of how we deal with democracy. Because the democracy that we practice at the moment, as you correctly say, is rooted from the colonial past.
Okay.
And it is based on the individual. And it doesn't necessarily always sit that easy with the culture of our African countries and our African communities. But it's a difficult balance, but at the same time, probably at this stage, democracy still is a system imperfect as it is.
But there's no other.
That's what I'm saying. It's the best that we have. But it is definitely an imperfect system.
Can we pick and choose? On capital, radical economic transformation seems to be premised on a rejection of this idea of accumulation of capital and the manner in which it has been experienced. There are some generally who don't have a relationship with capital, and that's a good relationship. Shouldn't that be the basis of the order of life? Some will have it, some will not have it.
Look, what we have to face in Africa is the reality that the vast majority of people are subjugated and poor. It's an unacceptable. Let me just finish what I'm trying to say. That is morally and ethically an unacceptable situation, and it is also not a tenable situation.
Okay.
Because that gap between rich and poor will inherently create instability. So what we need is a system that will bridge that gap. But we need to marry that also with the need to have economic growth, to have entrepreneurship and all of that. That is why we talk of a developmental state. Okay. What do we mean by the developmental state?
I've heard that rumor.
Yes, a rumor of a developmental state.
And I thought it was a big joke.
No, it's not. Because the issue that we deal with here is the contrast between, on the one hand, the free marketeers who say, let the market do as it wishes. And on the other hand, you have an understanding that in societies that we have in Africa, and this huge gap between rich and poor, you require the intervention of the state in order to address the inequalities of the past.
For that to happen, don't you agree you need a thinking state?
Yes, of course.
And a benevolent state.
You can't have a state where you consistently erode the power of the state away and give it to the hand to the private.
Do you need an able state?
I beg your pardon?
An able state.
Yes.
Yeah?
So
let's just look at this idea of
a state that is strong enough to be able to intervene and to work on behalf of the interest of especially the poor. So the developmental state will have to have a bias towards the poor.
So let's look at poverty. And sometimes we talk about it without understanding what it is and what it is not. We have been, in the context of this network, the 1873 network, trying to identify what is poverty. Because for me to eradicate it or to reduce the frontiers where it's relevant, I must know what it is. What do you think is poverty? And maybe before we even talk about what causes it.
Well, I would say that poverty is the absence of being able to determine your own future. The absence, just give me a chance to answer. The absence of being able to have basic rights met, like a basic right to shelter, a basic right to food, a basic right to education, a basic right to healthcare. In many instances, in many of our African countries, those rights are not actually possible for the majority of people.
So let's go to the blueprint of life and say, whoever designed life surely cannot be human. Would you agree?
Well, I don't know. I think
because if it was human, I only appropriate things for me. If there was gold of value or diamonds of value,
that does not necessarily mean what humanity is. In the spirit of Ubuntu, we care for other people.
No, I'm saying
we care for the community.
No, the creator, because we must accept that we enter into human society without any material resources.
Yes, that's true.
And we exit without.
Yes.
So everything that we experience in what we call life is actually provided for.
Yes.
Outside the creativity of man. Outside the
But it depends on how we deal with those material goods that we interact. And if we accumulate them just for ourselves and not share them with the rest of our community, then I don't believe that.
I'm just going to the creator that when I create a car, I must think about its functionality. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. So there must be some rationality in creation. Otherwise, I will be born without the means to live life. And when I look at the means to live life, I actually find there's nothing government provides, because it's already provided in the beginning of time. So all the materials that we think are of value to us, there's nothing a man can do other than convert it, not create it. So I can't create land, I can't create all the minerals, I can't create all the fruits.
But you can decide how you share it.
No, that's now application.
And that is that's important.
That's engineering.
That is what is going to determine whether the people in the community are actually going to be taken care of, or whether there's give me a chance. There's one individual who is now concentrating that wealth into him or herself and withhold that from the rest of the community. So what I'm saying is the role of the state is specifically to play that regulatory role to serve the whole of community and make sure that we can bridge this gap.
Let's call it a referee.
Yes, but the state is more than a referee.
So you are saying a player.
Yes.
So it plays number 9. Then I say it's a player, not just a referee. I say in soccer it's number 9 now.
What?
And we are offside. Who is going to say, hang on, you got a problem here? What do you think is a score? It's not a score.
No, it's not a score.
No, I'm saying is if I'm also the referee, and
but
I'm
the state
a player
is put there
by the people.
Is put there through a democratic process.
That's right. Not to do the things that our human beings like you and me can do. Actually, it won't be necessary, because I can't have a referee and a player and expect fairness.
But the state has to play the role.
That's where
both being a player and a referee.
But I'm saying is in the beginning.
And the way wait.
All right.
You are trying to put concepts that are very complex too simplistic.
All right, that's good.
And you have to be careful when you do that.
All right.
Because the state has an important role to play to regulate how we deal with the resources in our society.
Okay.
And the state is put there by the people through their vote in order to do so.
All right.
Through a democratic process.
Okay. So
let us be clear about it.
Yeah, I was just abstracting first.
No, it's fine.
To say, let's go to the beginning of time.
Yes.
And because most of the resources we actually are using today were created independent of us.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we need to regulate how we use those resources.
I'm
sure you agree with
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Because first I must get the gift. before I talk about application of the gift.
Okay.
And I must come to one conclusion with you, if it's possible, to say the blueprint of life is premised on resources required to live life,
of course,
being provided.
Biologically, you cannot live without certain resources.
The resources are there.
And life would not have arisen without those biological resources existing in order for life to develop to the point where it exists in the form that it exists.
I am now saying, like this object, for me to make it, there must be the means to make it.
Of course.
And those means were created not in this day.
Of course.
But it created
but that's stating the obvious.
No, it's not so obvious.
No, it is obvious because we get born into this earth.
That's right.
This earth that we have is what we have.
That's right.
We are born there.
Yeah.
When we arrive here, everything is here that made it possible for us to be born and to exist.
That's right.
Now the question is, how do we utilize what is?
Because I'm going to the
ideas of the...
I'm going to
what my understanding of
because
this
I
is
know
you got
an eagle eye. You are trying to catch me somewhere.
No,
I'm starting from the basics where you and I must be at one.
Okay.
That actually the gifts of nature are given common to all men.
That's fine.
Black, white, and doesn't matter. These gifts are given. Yeah. And capital is embedded in that gift. And you are just unlocking resources that already exist.
But man has decided, human beings has decided to develop capital, and that is part of the way in which they regulate how they deal with those resources that is this earth that we live on.
Okay. So I think Liberty is watching, David Nkantu is watching, following very close.
Okay.
And Giles Chota, survival of the fittest, and which species suffer. Evolution and rationality at play to determine economic outcomes. I think he's supporting your argument.
Well, what I think he's trying to say is that we cannot just have a society where survival of the fittest
is the norm.
We have to try and move away from that. And my argument consistently has been that the state has an important role to play.
I think
that,
but we want to provide an alternative narrative so that we can best understand this demon called colonialism.
Yes.
This demon called white monopoly capital. Because if we don't, then we may be sucked into an argument without ourselves understanding where these ideas and concepts come from.
Yes, that's true.
And then we are no longer active citizens. We actually surrender.
Yeah.
And to those people who have, I think, the eloquence to describe facts and circumstances.
Yes.
So we then get excluded, and we then result with power imbalances.
I think we're basically in agreement with
That's
each
right.
other about
So if we agree that there are gifts of nature, and those are given common to all men.
Yes.
And
because we're all born on this earth.
That's right. So we are all there.
Yeah.
Now we are in this earth, and we are trying to figure out the purpose of this complex life. First, could the designer of life have intended for that life to be lived without effort?
I think it will always be in terms of how we live, an effort to be able to engage with the resources that we have
and the reality
work for us.
And the reality given.
Yes.
That for outcomes to arise, there must be input.
Yes.
And some of the inputs are materials given common to all.
Yes.
Although they are given.
But remember also that, yes, they're given common to all on the whole earth.
Yeah.
But where you are born, in which part of the earth, also determines what are those resources that are common to you and your fellow countrymen or regional people in that particular area.
Nice.
Some people some countries like South Africa has got huge mineral resources.
That's right.
There are other countries that have hardly got any mineral
yeah.
resources. So there are also differences in terms of those given material resources that you have to interact with.
I fast forward.
Yeah.
I leave Jesus, I leave all the prophets, I'm now in 1652. I see Jan van Riebeeck
arriving here at the southern point of the Cape of Good Hope.
And who paid for his trip? For him to come to Africa? Who would have paid for his trip? Was it part of a colonial project? What do you think?
It was.
So he was funded?
He was funded by the Dutch East Indian Company.
The company?
But the Dutch East Indian Company extracted their profits from the exploitation of their interaction on a colonial basis with people in East India and in many other parts, which
so you are saying something that
Netherlands.
That the Dutch East India Company was in fact not a company.
Well, it was a company. It was a company that extracted super profits from the colonial people that they subjugated.
I'll go into the profits.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that this artificial person must have been incorporated somewhere and must have had its legal existence in terms of the jurisdiction of that country.
And that was probably based in the Netherlands, and you can probably find the documents in Amsterdam.
That's right. So I then take...
And you can, by the way, because I lived for quite a few years as ambassador in the Netherlands, and you can still see the results of the colonial extraction of super profits from the colonial countries to the Netherlands in terms of the beautiful architecture in the Netherlands and the wealth that is still concentrated in a small country such as the Netherlands, which has its colonial roots.
Okay, so you are making a serious allegation.
Yeah.
That,
of course I am.
There's some mischief.
That's mischief, but it's good mischief.
Okay, so capital and mischief.
Yes.
So if you are watching out there, I got Ambassador Carl Niehaus, and also you are involved in the MK, the veterans.
I'm involved in the Umkhonto-we-Sizwe Military Veterans Association.
You are a spokesman.
I'm a member of the National Executive, and in that capacity, I'm also the spokesman.
You are also the mouthpiece of it.
Because I was part of the liberation struggle, and I was trained as a soldier of Umkhonto-we-Sizwe Military. Umkhonto-we-Sizwe, in fact. Yes.
Tell our viewers, how was it like? What you look white. At midnight, I can't.
We must see what's underneath the skin.
So at midnight, I can't say you're white. So you are there during this.
I am white. I come from the white community. I was born to white Afrikaner parents.
Okay.
But
So what went wrong?
No, what went right?
Okay.
The right thing that happened was that I reached the point where I said this system of racism and apartheid was unacceptable.
Yeah.
And when I was still quite young, 40 years ago, now I'm giving my age away, when I was 19 years old, I joined the African National Congress.
Okay, joined it. I think...
then the ANC, of course, was still a banned organization.
And when was this?
When was it? What year?
Yeah.
1978.
Or 1978. So, Farah, if you are watching, you said, what's the topic under discussion? The topic is the one that is on top there. It says, the future I want. And we're just having a conversation, just an informal conversation. And I think this kind of conversations are often missing.
Yeah.
We're just doing it to provoke you, to ignite you, to inspire you to be an active citizen.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, the issues are the same. The debates are the same. It doesn't matter whether you're in a developed market. As long as you have human beings, there's a lot to talk about.
Yes.
Why is this person rich? And why is another poor? Why is another ugly? Why is another handsome?
Or even if the way in which we look at people is not determined by our socialization.
That's right.
So sometimes we think someone is ugly, but someone else says, oh,
yeah,
that person is beautiful.
And we think of white privilege.
Yes.
And imagine, I think Farai, you're from Zimbabwe. Imagine whites had never visited Africa. What would be the reality like?
Well, you know what President Zuma said in the National Assembly?
Yeah.
Because you referred to 1652 when
Yeah.
Van Riebeeck arrived. He
Yeah.
said, when Van Riebeeck arrived with those ships, that's when the trouble started.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
So you may come to the conclusion that even for President Mugabe to call himself president,
Mm-hmm.
whites had to be involved in that bridge.
I don't know if it was necessary.
You
Perhaps
be
he would have
calling
been
himself
called
a
different
king.
leader.
No, I'm saying for him to be dressed in the manner in which he is, to speak the way he speaks, so eloquent in Shona and in English.
Mm-hmm.
And that eloquence, Farai, you may come to the conclusion that in the eloquence is white property.
No, of course, the mix between the role of white missionaries,
That's right.
and, the involvement of whites, you
Yeah.
can no longer unscramble.
Unscramble. It's just
So
it's just too late
the
for us.
same way that President Nelson Mandela acknowledged
That
the role that
Yeah.
missionaries and white missionaries played in his life when he went to school and university.
Yeah. So we're just trying to reality test that when people criticize Mandela,
Mhm.
they also must bear in mind that actually he may have understood
Mhm.
that it's no longer divisible.
Mhm.
That it's too late for us to say go back to Europe. Because the people we call Europeans or white actually are as African as you and me.
But at the same time, he did not say we accept the inequalities and
No,
the
no,
exploitation that came with white colonialism.
No, we will deal with that term
but
called
I think it's
colonialism.
important, because the point that you make is true.
Yeah.
But if you go and overgeneralize and extrapolate
Yeah.
that to the point where you say,
No, I know you'll be watching me, so I
I'm-
won't get
I'm
there.
watching you carefully. But the important thing is the exploitation character
Yeah.
of colonialism can
Yeah.
never be
No,
accepted.
we will visit
That
one
can't be
another
accepted.
day. One
The
another day.
influence
But
of colonialism on our cultures, how
yeah.
it mixed in with
Yeah.
African culture, that is a given that we all are fighting and battling.
that's right. So I'm
But
saying
it
is
is
that
still
here
important
you
for
are.
African identity.
Here
to
you
prevail.
are. You are a mistake of history. Would you
I-
agree? Yeah. A white person, supposedly in privilege, joining these darkies to fight against.
No, it wasn't a mistake of history.
No, no,
The mistake,
I'm-
no.
Okay.
The mistake of history was what whites did when they subjected the majority of black and African people to apartheid. That was the mistake
But
of history.
let
That was what was
let
wrong.
me sketch a scenario for you.
Yeah.
Okay, I leave Europe,
Mhm.
pay for my ticket.
Which ticket now? The one on the
The one way,
Dromedaris, that boat that came in
yeah,
1652?
no. I can see Europe.
Yeah.
I can see I don't fit in the nobility, in
Yeah.
the royalty.
So I'm a poor white
I'm a
person
poor
in
white.
Europe.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know some have gone to America,
Mhm.
some have gone to the Dominion.
Mhm.
They're in Canada, they're in Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah.
And everybody's writing stories about this promise that I am singing Mr. Newton's song. You know what that song is?
Mhm.
Amazing Grace.
Yes.
I didn't know. I was blind in Europe.
Mhm.
Now I can see. And these savages, they have no business plan. They're sitting on top of minerals. They're sitting on top of God's gifts. Actually, not only that.
So I come in, I take over, I steal the
No,
land, I become rich.
I'm just saying is I'm not taking
and
any.
I use my particular norms and culture to call other people savages.
Yeah.
While my behavior of taking the
because
land,
I eat
killing
and
the people
I eat
is in fact savage
I
itself.
eat life myself. everything that is life, I kill.
Yeah.
Except humans. So I am a natural killer. I'm a predator. That's how I was created. So I take... So I'm just saying, hey, thank God. Why did you make me arrive and see these people running amok looking for animals? They don't have fixed abode. They're just running. And they're tending to animals on top of minerals. They don't even know what a mineral is. They think it's rock. And I know it was not the intention of the Creator to allow these treasures to be so abused, so underused, and even blindly ignored.
So now take it away from
no,
the
I'm not
rightful owners.
I'm not
Yes,
taking. I'm not taking, because if the Creator didn't want me to convert this to human use, he would have stopped me from arriving and arrested me at Cape of Good Hope.
Work on a number of premises. Eh?
Yeah, I have arrived at Cape of Good Hope, not Bad Hope.
Well, I call it Cape of Good Hope, but I turn it into Bad Hope for the local people who live there, because I take everything that was theirs away from them and use it for my own purpose.
Do you agree if I don't know better? I'm not hurt. If I don't know somebody just died now, is it death to me? Huh? I cannot deprive somebody with purpose. But you can't say because I was born in this area, therefore my purpose is to play the Creator's role. And say, whatever you take from the rock, give me. Just because I exist. A lion then looks at me and says, hang on, I also must collect taxes. Because these minerals are common to all of us. I didn't know that there were minerals here of value. Now, you have just shown me. So the lion comes and knocks on the door and says, can I get my portion? A portion of what? Says, of our promise. Because hang on, the Creator did not make a mistake that I'm born here. So my job is to use my eyes to make sure that whatever you're taking from the ground, I partake. That's one scenario. Then, and this scenario will then go in and say, value given by the Creator is valueless without human effort.
Yes.
Would you agree?
Yes.
So if I didn't interfere or intervene, not against you, but in search of this promise, there will still be no disturbance. There will not be roads, infrastructure that you are claiming. We never brought anything. They came with one-way ticket. They arrived here and nobody promised them anything. I'm talking about your great-great-fathers. And now we are saying, no. Actually, the design of life was meant to allow for someone to be a gatekeeper. That's the developmental state. That is this socialist idea, this communist idea, that when it comes to harvest time, it's we, it's Ubuntu. When it comes to finding and extracting, it's not Ubuntu time. Do you think that will inspire the human spirit?
Let me deal with a whole lot of things. I allowed you to speak.
Okay.
First of all, the people who arrived.
Okay.
No, but I kept quiet.
No, I'm listening.
I listened.
I'm listening.
So I'm asking the same.
No, I'm listening.
The people who arrived in 1652
Okay.
came on foreign shores. It was not their land.
Okay, so I need
No,
I'm saying is, I'm just repeating
Sure.
Please,
Okay,
please.
give me a chance.
Okay.
Not their land.
Yeah.
They arrive here, they take that land, and the old story that the white colonialists try to tell us that this land was not occupied is not true. It
Okay.
was occupied.
Okay.
The people who occupied it lived their own ways, their own culture.
Mm-hmm.
They got forced off this land in the most brutal manner.
Mm-hmm.
That's historically true.
Okay.
You can go and look at the historical records. Thousands of people died.
Okay.
The people who took that land then subjected the grabbing of that land, and I call it the stealing of that land,
Okay.
to the legal systems that they introduced from Europe to Africa.
Okay.
Those legal systems entirely foreign,
Okay.
entirely not known
That's right.
to the indigenous people.
Okay.
Then they took that land and started using it.
Mm-hmm.
But simultaneously, they forced the majority of people who were the rightful owners and living on this land off the land.
Okay.
You know the history.
Okay.
You know what happened with the various land acts that had been introduced in South Africa.
Yeah.
You know what happened in 1913 with the land act.
The land act. Yeah.
People lost their land.
Land, yeah.
People were forced onto the marginal and the rocky lands.
Okay.
People were not able to make a living. Then, because you force people off their land, you bring them back to work for you, because they cannot take care of themselves. They cannot take care of what they previously did very well in terms of livelihood, livestock, planting of agriculture, etc., etc. Now they are dependent on labor for you.
Which is
Then, yes,
yeah.
as you quite correctly say, you discover that there are minerals in the soil. You say, wow, these minerals are worth something.
Okay.
I'm going to now build mines.
Yeah.
I'm going to come and bring capital from Europe in
Okay.
order to build those mines. In come some of the most unsavory colonialist characters like
Okay.
Cecil John Rhodes, the Oppenheimers, Sammy Marks. We can continue to mention all of those.
I think
Yeah.
in the future
let me
we'll talk
finish.
about them.
You
Yeah.
could bring them in,
Yeah.
mine the land, and the way in which you create your profits, your super profit, is by using the cheap labor of the people that have been driven off the land into the marginal areas who now have to work for you.
Okay.
Ne? So this is what the system is all about. Now you can come and tell me that this is human nature. Humans take what they see and what they can lay their hands on. I'm saying that as time goes on, we have to implement a system that acknowledges that there were historically rights for people who lived on this land.
Okay.
And that those people have to be given an opportunity to not only control this land, but also to regain the wealth of this land. And that in order to do that, you are not going to change the whole capitalist system that have been built up to this point.
Okay.
You're not going to change it
Okay.
simply by allowing the status quo to continue.
Okay.
You're going to have to introduce deliberate actions in order to correct those wrongs that have been committed, as I explained them to you, over a long period of time.
Okay.
And that is where I came in with the issue of the role of the state.
Right, yeah.
The state can intervene in order to say, we represent, as the state, the majority
We're
of people.
custodians.
We are now the custodians of the land, we're the custodians of the wealth, and we are going to work and engage with the people in a manner that will allow also the majority of people to benefit and get part of the wealth of this country. That is what the Freedom...
That's-
let me just conclude. That is what the Freedom Charter said when it said, the wealth of the country shall be shared amongst those who live in it. Majority of people in this country had been disenfranchised, but they've also been disempowered economically.
Okay.
The return of the franchise or the vote did not naturally and logically lead to the empowerment of them economically. But the state that they voted for, that they placed in power, should use its power in order to make that economical change. That's all I'm saying.
Honorable Kasolo Chisenga said the white man is making sense.
I'm trying.
Okay, Nomsa says good point, and let's see what.
But I'm enjoying the challenge of the conversation.
Okay, thanks. It says whites are part of us. We have one home, the earth. Augustine McConey says following. TC, the guest should graduate from seeing through the lenses of boundaries. These boundaries were created by men. They are human creation.
Yes, they are.
And you can't hear anymore. So we have another comment. We would still be in the bush, men hunting, women making babies. That's Nomsa. That if whites had not visited Africa, can you imagine?
Well, that is a premise that she works or he works from. That is not to be proved, because it could very well also be very different in terms of how the developments could have gone. We cannot predict how it would have gone, but the role of whites in our society, you cannot necessarily just say that it would have been the upliftment of the indigenous people to anything. In fact, the majority of black people have suffered more on the hands of whites than benefited from the hands of white colonialists, and that is the harsh reality. Okay, and George Sumanja says it's not about skin color. Together we can, only if we can hold hands, we can build a better Africa, a racism-free generation. Ultimately, that's where we want to go. That's where we want. But I guess that's the fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is, if we cannot acknowledge the role that race and colonialism played to where we are now, we are never going to be able to address the consequences of that for the future. But should we acknowledge something we don't know? What do you mean you don't know it? You feel it every day. No, I'm saying it every day. I'm saying it's happened. It's a historical fact. Cameraman, stop fidgeting. Isn't it a historical fact what I've described to you now? You know what I was saying yesterday? Yeah. We were looking at a glass, but it was half. Oh, it's the old philosophical question, half empty, half full. Yeah. So we are looking at the same facts, but sometimes we don't have to agree. That's fine. It depends on where the person is coming from. So I cannot acknowledge that it's half empty and acknowledge that it's half full. No, but you see, that argument is, the fact of the matter is that the glass is half and not full. There's a problem. And the problem that you are faced with is that there were particularly historical interventions that happened in this part of this continent through white colonialists. I think and the consequences of what they had done were severe for the majority of people. And we cannot deny it. We need to understand this elephant in the room. Yeah. And what is the elephant? White. Yes. That this white monster who looks like you but doesn't talk like you. Yeah. What kind of animal is this? A human being? Of course it's a human being. A man of flesh. Yes. And a woman of flesh. Of course. So let's understand him and the mischief in his self-interest. Yes. And not deny that we are all self-interested. But if we only allow self-interest to prevail without an understanding of community and communal interest. That's right. You know what will happen? The old saying, an eye for an eye. And we end up eventually we all end up blind. The sad thing that we have about, as you call it, this white elephant in the room, is that the white elephant has not yet acknowledged how it benefited from its colonial past, and doesn't want to acknowledge that every white person, and I'm telling you, I include myself, have benefited from the system of colonialism and apartheid. And as I'm sitting here today, I benefited as a youngster
I
because
take confessions. I'm listening now carefully.
Yeah. Listen.
Okay.
I lived in a better suburb.
Okay.
I had better education.
Okay.
I had better health care. So I benefited from apartheid.
Okay.
The biggest problem that we have is
Yeah.
that the white people in this country do not want to make that simple,
That concession.
logical acknowledgement.
Okay.
We had Black Monday recently,
Okay.
where white people complained about the killings on the farms.
Yeah.
And objectively, yes, all of us
Yeah.
should object about the killings on the farms.
On the farms, yeah.
But then when you connect it
Yeah.
with an old apartheid flag and the symbols of apartheid,
Yeah.
when you then start saying, yeah, but we whites have done nothing wrong, when you then start saying that we whites are now in the context of so-called counter-black discrimination against us because there is black economic empowerment and corrective action, then you've got a serious problem.
Serious problem.
The problem is the consciousness of the white community in South Africa. They don't understand what apartheid meant for the majority of black people and how the majority of black people were subjugated, exploited, and often the soul of the African was destroyed by apartheid. That they don't want to acknowledge. And as long as we don't acknowledge that, the possibility for us to come to this dream that one of our viewers referred to, white and black, simply
The
as
Mandela-
human
the Man-
beings
the-
together,
the
is
rainbow.
not going to happen.
The rainbow and the melting pot.
But the Rainbow Nation, do you think we have a Rainbow Nation in South Africa? Let me start asking a few questions.
Okay,
Do you
can-
think that
you can
the
interview
comments
me
that
now.
Archbishop Tutu made about the Rainbow Nation was in fact realistic? Was it describing the truth, or was it expressing a hope and a dream?
I think it's an idea.
Ideal. But
Yeah.
does the ideal exist now?
No, I think we have to work for it.
Of course we
That's
have
why.
to work.
That's why we're on air, trying to win over somebody.
But
out
working for it doesn't mean
No.
that you disregard the
there.
past.
But life itself, you wake up with it.
Yeah.
In fact, you're going to ask, what is 1873? Wouldn't that be a valid question?
Yes.
I see this number.
What is it?
See, in 1873, Africa had no borders.
Okay.
And we wanted to come up with a borderless
Good.
idea.
I hear you. Mm-hmm.
Then we said, okay, 1 plus 8 is 9.
Mm-hmm.
7 plus 3
It's
is
10.
10.
Mhm.
And the difference is 1
Mm-hmm.
in ascending order.
Okay.
And life is ascending.
Mm-hmm.
You are born 0, you die, clocking somewhere. No, you have clocked.
Mm.
Something, whether it's 53, whether it's 60.
But at the end of a life, you still go into that soil
That's what I'm saying.
without
is
a single
but,
thing.
No, I'm saying is the journey itself
Is important.
is what we are trying to
Yes.
understand.
Okay.
That's all we can share.
Yeah.
That's where we can all draw lessons. What you have said, nobody will force you to say what you are saying. And it's coming from you.
Yes.
So I can't say it's a white idea.
Mm-hmm.
I can only say it's your idea.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are informed by certain experiences. You are informed by certain
Of course.
environmental, whatever, sociological, psychological things that only you can express.
Yes.
And I can't multiply you. And I saw one white person. Therefore, all white people must be like you. It would
That's
be
true.
wrong.
But it's also true that unfortunately there is a tendency for a large part of the white community to behave in a certain manner.
No, I'm saying is now we're generalizing.
Yes,
I think
but you see, yes, we're all individuals.
yeah.
But generalization, especially in understanding how communities function, is also not entirely irrelevant.
You know, Margaret Thatcher once said,
Oh yeah, Margaret Thatcher.
yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff that we can learn from her.
Yeah, let me
She
hear.
said society doesn't exist,
Mhm.
but individuals do.
See, I would disagree with that.
Okay, we're going to have another
And I understand why Margaret Thatcher said that from her particular right-wing philosophy.
That's right. We need to understand
I know where
ideas.
she comes from, but it's not the kind of society that I would like to see.
No, yeah, I'm saying is you
Because we need a society where community does exist. And in Africa, community is critical.
That's right. And we would want to understand where the address
And
of
we've seen what Margaret Thatcher did to Arthur Cargill and to the mine workers.
That's right.
And what she did to many of the poor and the people who were not part of the elite in the UK.
And Anomsa says, few whites reason like you say. She respects you.
No, but what I'm saying to you, and that's why I talked about generalization.
Yeah.
I said generalization is relevant.
Yeah.
Because Nomsa is right.
Yeah.
That a large, probably the majority of whites in South Africa don't reason like me. And they still continue to try and hold on to the old system of apartheid.
Now,
and they still want to.
What are they?
They hanker
What are they
back
calling
to the
you?
privileges
What are
of
they
the
calling
past.
you now? Now that you are a spokesman for Turkish now.
Look, let me be clear. My politics is not premised on the fact that I am a white person. I am part of the African National Congress.
Yeah.
I don't see.
But,
no, let me explain. I don't see my constituency as whites. My constituency are the members of the ANC. If the white people reject me because I understand that constituency as members of the ANC, it's their problem.
But right now, tell us, how do they perceive you? If let's say these whites existed as a group, and I say, I want to penetrate their minds, understand what they're saying about Carl Niehaus. What are they saying?
Well, I'm sure a lot of them are saying very negative things.
Okay, one.
Because they think there's a group. Ne? So they believe that I betrayed them.
Okay, so one is betrayal.
I'll be a traitor.
Like Mnanga Gwenzi,
I'll be a traitor.
Betrayed president.
I'll be someone who sells out whites to black people. I can use some other of the derisive words they use. We'll leave that.
Yeah.
But for me, the simple thing is a challenge to the white community consistently has to be understand the history and understand how black people and especially Africans have been exploited by apartheid and what the consequences. If you're not able to understand that, if you hanker back to it, you are not able to make a positive contribution to the future of South Africa.
Okay. So,
and sadly, the majority of whites are not doing it because they are not accepting that they were the benefactors of apartheid and that there has to be a transformational process where affirmative action has to take place.
How best can that be done?
How best
You're talking about engineering outcomes. You're talking about somebody going to government.
Well, you know what we try to
make you
do.
less rich.
No, listen to you know what we tried to do.
Okay.
You know how we reached out.
Yeah.
You know what Tata Mandela did. How Mandela reached out to the white community.
Yeah.
My question today, 24 years later, is to what extent did that outreach actually work? Okay. And my fear is that it didn't work. So at some point along the line, and this is where I come back to my original argument to you about government.
Yeah.
At some point along the line, government, which is run and ruled by the majority party, which is the African National Congress, has to say this is enough.
Okay.
We are now not just going to rely on the goodwill of the white community, but we are going to enforce legislation in order to make sure that these issues that have to be addressed are addressed. That's why I'm in favor of land restitution without compensation. That's why I'm saying that we have to address the issues of the large financial institutions, the banks, and also the insurance companies, and the way in which they have accumulated their wealth, and the way in which they don't make financial resources at an affordable basis available to the majority of black people. And if they are not prepared to engage with us on a patriotic way in acknowledgement of how apartheid led to this situation, then we have little other option but to introduce legislation in order to force them to make those changes. Sure. And we've reached that point. Okay. That is why we are now, at this juncture in our history, talking about radical economic transformation. Okay. And that radical economic transformation is going to have to be implemented through legislation, and legislation that will enforce a change in the power dynamics of the economy in this country so the majority of black people can gain control.
So,
and if the white people don't like it, you know what's my answer? You've had a chance to voluntarily do it. You haven't. Now, tough. Now you're going to have to face it through legislation.
So you advocate many things.
Yes.
That the government must be led by a competent person.
Yes.
Government must be rational.
Yeah.
Government must...
But of course, can I interrupt you?
Okay.
We must be careful about these definitions such as rational.
Okay.
Because what one person may consider to be rational, another person may say, hey,
No,
I don't like it, therefore I say it's not rational.
I was just trying to test whether they're still listening.
No, I'm listening to you. Because I know that some people from the Free Market Foundation will say, what I'm proposing in terms of intervention by government and the developmental state is irrational. I'm saying that Leon Lowe and the Free Market Foundation is advancing in terms of simply an economy of individuals, similar to what Margaret Thatcher has been saying, is irrational.
It's irrational.
Especially irrational for the South African context.
I think you got a friend who is saying, do you think whites have a future in South Africa?
Yes.
I thought you were given up.
Who's given up?
You.
I haven't given up on whites, but I'm saying
I thought you just
there's a challenge for whites. No.
Mandela was
it's
trying
the
to
only
give
way that we engage with whites, the way that
you
we ask
them.
whites to be indulgent of us and
But
try and
after
understand.
23 years, you're tired.
No, I'm not tired.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm not tired, but I'm saying that the time had come where we will proceed with the necessary legislative action in order to correct the wrongs of the past.
What do you think of
The
that?
white community in this country has a challenge. I've not given up on them, but my challenge to them is catch on to the reality of the past and become part of the new South Africa by acknowledging that the new South Africa has to be one, where the majority and especially the African people have to be in control, not just of the vote and the ballot box, but of the economy.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
There is so much to come.
Yes, I know.
And so much. And you know what Cecil John Rhodes said?
What did he say?
So much to do.
But he just wanted it all for himself.
But he knew he was going to die.
He didn't live as if he knew that.
Yeah, he knew. Because he was sick from a young age.
But Cecil, do you know what Cecil John Rhodes did in what is now called Zimbabwe?
Yeah.
Do you know how he introduced the first automatic machine guns and mowed down a huge part of the population there in order to get to the minerals and to start his mines?
I'm saying is
that is what he did in the pursuit of this mineral resources that we spoke about.
In fact, we're going to do another show with you.
Yeah.
Imagine Rhodes had never lived.
I think we would have been better off.
That's what we want to do.
That's my view.
Yeah.
But we can debate it.
I think we can debate it.
And I'm happy, let me say it, I'm very happy that the students of the University of Cape Town managed to get rid of that statue of him in front of the university.
But they didn't know that the statue was just stone.
Of course it's a stone, but it symbolized something.
No, the guy is gone.
But the stone was there
since
symbolizing
1902.
the philosophy.
No.
Yes.
I cannot go to Jesus and see the picture and say, let me finish him.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
You know exactly what
But there are so many symbols.
Yes.
And when you die, there are people who may honor you and say, there lies a man who chose to speak his mind, even when it was not necessary, even when it was not called for. There are people who are watching today who, because of you, see the world differently from what they were seeing it before. And find your argument, the missing argument that always they were thinking of, but actually never knew how to get that argument when they are having their own conversations. There are people out there who are saying, Mandela was a sellout. This Mandela guy.
I'll never say he was a sellout.
No, it's you.
No. just have to say,
Yeah.
because if anyone says that, I have to correct that. But I also think he was a particularly historical figure in a historical time.
He did his part.
He did his part, but we shouldn't get stuck at that point.
Okay.
And we need to move on. And the moving on process that I'm talking to all the time here today
Yeah.
is that we have to address the issue of economic transformation.
In fact, you know, you raised one demon, which is economic being the first name of transformation.
Yes.
That is a big subject.
Yeah.
And most people don't know what economic is, let alone transformation. Because transformation, you must have two forms. Is that correct?
I'm trying to hear what you say.
Yeah. You must
I have to first hear your argument before I can engage
you
or
must
agree
change,
or disagree.
You must change the form from one form
to another.
to another. So I must have a paradigm.
Yeah. On what exists,
Yeah.
and also what I want to move
To move to.
And that is the
And
paradigm
look,
that you
that's
refer to.
right.
Yes.
So I must shift the paradigm.
Yes.
And with all the cost and benefits inherent in the shift.
Yeah.
Because any shift can upset even the destination.
Well, I think the reality is for the majority of black South Africans, they will say we've got nothing to lose. The paradigm and the shift has to take place because now we have nothing.
No, I'm saying is that
No,
when
you agree with that point?
No,
but it's
I
an important
don't-
point that I want to make to you.
I don't agree in the we. I agree in the I contained in the we.
Okay. That's fine.
So it must start with you, because I'm talking to you.
Yes.
I'm not talking to NC. I'm not even talking to Dr. NDZ.
But how do you think I am who I am today? That's a very interesting discussion.
Yeah.
And I think this is a discussion we need to have, perhaps as a separate one.
Yeah.
Who is the I who sits in front of you? I, Carl Niehaus.
This is a manufacture of certain experience. You are not
who I am.
You are not even Carl.
No, listen.
You are not even the son of Niehaus.
Yeah.
You are you.
And listen, how did I become who I am?
Because that's you.
No,
First,
because there were certain forces, influences in my environment that played in on me. And the most significant influence of making me who I am was the ANC.
Okay.
I cannot be divorced from the African National Congress. I'm a product of the ANC.
I want to understand this animal called the ANC, and I think if you are watching this life-altering, character, personality-altering construct called the African National Congress, that was started only by natives in 1912.
Yes.
That was then named the Congress in 1923.
African Native Congress that became the African
National Congress.
Yes.
These were just natives who were just forming a Congress. They were just wanted to meet.
No, they wanted, if you listen to what the first founding fathers of the ANC said, they spoke about liberty. They spoke about unity.
But what I'm saying is that
Bixley said, Khaseme said, we must form unity.
Yeah. But you know, liberty is one of the most misunderstood terms.
Yeah. Now you need to define it for me so that I can agree or disagree.
Okay. I start from laws of nature.
Yeah.
That in you there is property.
Of course. That we can agree.
Free will.
Up to a point.
And
not
also,
entirely.
And also reason.
Yes.
Even unreasonableness is part of reasoning.
Yes.
Even irrationality is part of rationality.
That's very good basic philosophy.
So we are now, that's you. In you is the property to live life.
Yes.
You are fully stocked with it. The rest is negotiation. So liberty.
I live in a context.
Liberty.
Never exclude the context.
Liberty.
I didn't ask to be born in 1959. I was born in 1959 because that is what life gave me. That is how it worked out between my mum and dad.
You know cash and carry?
Cash and carry.
Yeah.
Yeah?
The premise is that if you don't have cash, you don't carry.
Yeah.
So it's simple. There's an exchange of value. Bring one form of cash, take another form of cash.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at this IP that you possess, it cannot be taken away. I can't sell your brains.
Now that you can fortunately not yet do.
No, yeah,
Not yet.
So your free will, I cannot
never,
trade it.
My friend, I am never just an isolated free world person outside a context. I'm always in a context. And my context that I live in, this I that you talk about, was born in 1959 in an apartheid society from white Afrikaner parents. Okay. I was formed by my environment. Yes, I could make choices, but I was never totally divorced from my society and my community.
Now you're coming to the we.
Yeah.
And the I in the we.
Yes.
But you, as you got powers inherent in you.
No, of course.
Even the things you are saying now.
Of course, I had choices in that context, but I was never divorced entirely from the context.
I'm saying that is now.
That's not possible.
That's now a pursuit of happiness. You wouldn't choose to associate where it's your disadvantage.
Yes.
So we are.
No, that's not right. Life is not simply always a pursuit of happiness.
Okay. No. The right to pursue.
Yeah, you've got a right to pursue, but you can also pursue sometimes aims and objectives that will give you a very difficult time in life.
Okay. So,
and I personally know it. I mean, I made certain choices that led to me going to prison for 10 years. You think that was a happy experience? No.
Were you part of the project?
Which project?
That you go to prison to liberate others.
I went to prison as a member of the ANC.
No, I'm saying you're part of this project, glorious project.
Of course, the ANC struggle was glorious. I don't want to call it a project, it was a struggle.
No, I'm saying...
But listen to me. Okay. I made choices. Those choices did not necessarily mean that I just chose what would have been the happiest route.
No, one day
I chose what I thought was the right thing to do, with the consequences attached.
So, like an onion, we peel one layer after. So now we know that you are an ex-con.
Yeah, but not a criminal. I was a liberation
like
fighter.
Mandela was an ex-con.
Yes. That's
so,
how it was.
Yeah, and you couldn't. People couldn't understand why an ex-con was a celebrity.
But it was deliberate.
No, a celebrity.
Oh, a celebrity. I don't know if I was a celebrity.
No,
Mandela was Madiba became a celebrity.
A celebrity. But people never understood what they were celebrating.
You say they didn't understand?
No, most people didn't.
What they should have celebrated was the liberation fight.
That's right. But they saw in him a celebrity. But they didn't understand what made him being celebrated.
The struggle made him. What he was. Yeah. And again, it comes back to the point I made, because what Mandela said is very similar to what I said just now. He said, I was nothing without the ANC. So we come back to the I and the collective.
When is your birthday?
What is what business?
No. I'm saying is, next year is especially the centenary. Mandela, we are looking for 100 reasons why Mandela must be understood.
Okay.
Can you start with one?
Why it must be understood?
Yeah. Because there are many people who actually think he was a liberator. But he was just a human of flesh. We met him, we touched his hand. That generation will expire. 1,000 years from now, they will wonder, what kind of a person was he? Was he a saint? Was he a sinner? Was he human? Who was he?
You remember what he said?
Yeah.
He said, I'm a sinner who keeps on trying.
See? But how many people remember that?
I think the most important thing that I would like to remember about Mandela was that he was, wherever I met him, whether it was privately in the back room or on the front stage, always the same person.
He
never had two different personas.
Versus.
So one of the characteristics we need to understand of what made Madiba as good and as strong as he was at that particular juncture in history was consistency.
Consistency.
No, consistency.
Yeah.
In terms of personality and in terms of action. Conviction, consistency.
And consistency.
Yeah. And he was consistent outside prison, inside prison, in the presidency, out of the presidency, wherever he was the same person.
Next year, you have a project to ignite and inspire using birthdays. So if it's your birthday and we end up with 100 people sharing your birthday and we all come together, how much noise can we make?
You know when my birthday is?
Yeah.
25th of December.
Yeah, so you are Christ. Although Christ may not have been born then.
I just happened to have been born on the 25th of December.
We are going to say Karl Marx was born on the 25th December, so that all the communists come.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So that's 25th.
See, many people were born on the 25th of December.
And they all have changed the world.
Yes.
Yeah. 25th is a bad day.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are going to have 25 reasons. But 2018, we're going to celebrate the centenary
of
Mandela. So we're saying on the 25th, we have more than 1 year to plan for the 28th, for your birthday in the 2018 to salute what Mandela stood for. Because some people don't understand why go to prison and be one-term president. If you are watching them, would you go to prison? How many years?
26.
26 years, only to harvest 5 years.
But I don't think he went to prison for the 5 years. I don't think that's why he did what he did. He went to prison because he wanted to see a changed South Africa, and he wanted to see a liberated South Africa.
That's what you were
The 5 years was coincidental.
I'm saying is nobody promised.
But
him.
the problem that we
Nobody
faced with
yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
the problem that we face with sometimes, is that we now sometimes seem to have leaders who think that the term in office is the most important thing. It should never be.
That's right.
The most important thing is that journey that you refer to, which is with the aim to bring liberation.
But
and
also,
change to the people
also
of the
you are
land.
saying something more than what you are saying.
Yeah.
You are saying that when you went to Robben Island, there was no promise.
Of course there wasn't.
Yeah. So
In
he
fact,
couldn't have gone in for the purpose of 5 years.
So the only thing that Mandela knew and the Rivonia trialists knew is that they had life sentences.
That's right.
And remember, what people forget, they think prison sentences were like the ones that we get today.
Yeah.
Where you will get remission, and after 20 years, life is now becoming a 20-year sentence, and then you go out.
Yeah.
Remember, during the apartheid era, if you were a political prisoner and you were sentenced for life, that is exactly what it meant. Life.
Life and
so
life.
when Mandela walked onto Robben Island, into that cell, all he knew is that for the rest of his life, that was
and he had reconciled himself to that fact.
If you read his book, yes. But of course, he always had hope that
that's hope. That's hope.
But he did reconcile to, this is where I'm now and let me make the best of what I have.
That is the lesson.
And he did it.
And he did it. And he came out.
And that's what I meant when I said to you, consistency.
Better, not bitter.
And, not bitter.
Yeah, but others, you put them one day, they will finish. They will come out with a dagger. So I think that is the challenge that we all face. Yeah. And I think I can't thank you more than enough for just being here.
Thank you.
Just giving up your time, because all too often we're busy.
No, but I enjoy this.
Yeah, no, thank you.
It's very different from what I expected, but that's no problem.
I hope in a positive,
Very positive. I enjoy it.
In a positive direction. I think Rosmo also enjoy. Working class white people, most of them African speakers, are going through an intense crisis. But you will not read about it in the newspapers and see it reported on newspapers, because their plight seems to be something arising out of South Africa's bad old past. A past which everyone, black and white, would like to forget.
Yeah.
Then Andile Kambi says, great discussion.
Thanks.
So thank you very much. We'll ask Ambassador, maybe the last question. You have been seen with NDZ. What is NDZ? Is it a person?
Yes, it's Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma.
I wanted you to pronounce it.
Yeah, and I can. Eh?
That's what I saw. At least you passed the
But
exam.
Comrade Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma
Yeah.
is one of those people who understand this interaction between individual and community.
Okay.
The I and the we.
Okay.
And what I respect about her is her history and her commitment to the struggle. And you know what is one of the most important things about her?
Yeah.
When she stands up and she says, yes, I'm involved in this contestation for the presidency of the ANC.
Yeah.
But whether I win or lose, I will continue to remain in the ANC. I'm not here just for being a leader. I'm here to serve. That is enough for me.
When did your path intersect?
Many years ago. Okay. I was trying to figure it out the other day. I think the first time we met was about 30 years ago.
Okay.
But remember, you referred to me as ambassador. Not many South Africans use these titles.
Yeah.
I remember when I was ambassador, she was my minister. She was the minister
she appointed you
international. Well, ambassadors are appointed by presidents.
No, I'm saying under
Madiba appointed me,
no,
but she was the minister
at the time
for international relations.
At the time.
Yes.
Ah, okay. So your name must have passed through
and she was my boss then, and now she's my boss again.
Okay. So how does it feel to fight the buffalo soldier?
Oh, that's fine. We can contest each other as comrades.
Okay.
Not a problem.
So
as long as at the end of this whole contestation, we remain comrades. That's what we have to do.
Okay.
And as long as we make sure, and this is for me critical, any comrade who participate in this contestation for the presidency must commit themselves that if they lose, they will not break the ANC, they will stay in the ANC, and they will commit themselves to the unity of the ANC.
I thought you were going to invite President Mbeki.
To do what?
To be active.
That's President Mbeki's choice.
I'm saying to get...
I thought President Mbeki, I presume President Mbeki is still a member of the ANC.
Yeah.
It is his choice to be a member of the ANC. And you know what President Zuma says? He says he's looking forward to the day that he's no longer president so that he can be a branch member and become a delegate for a branch at the national conference. And he can stand up and talk his mind without worrying that he has to represent everyone.
Okay.
Now, I mean, President Mbeki has got the right to be an active member of the ANC.
Yeah.
His choice whether he's going to carry out that right or not. Yeah.
So I think you are looking forward to December. Again, when are the dates?
Oh, it's from, I think it's the 16th until the 21st of December.
Until the 21st. So on the 21st,
5 days.
We'll know.
Yeah, and I'm quite confident that when we walk out of that national elective conference at the last day, Comrade Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma will be president.
Okay.
That is my hope, because I think she's the person who is the right person to lead the ANC at this juncture.
So we will invite her through you. We've started a project called Business Rivonia Action Group, which is in this just Rivonia Boulevard, where we are saying, let's just look at one community. How can we make this community be what it should be? Because we all are thinking about national government, forgetting that the real government is the local government.
And you know what?
Yeah.
National government is made up out of communities. And that is why when we talk about radical economic transformation, if you cannot translate radical economic transformation into community action, then you don't understand it.
So we hope we
can... But Comrade Nkosazana is one of those people who can translate those big economic, academic concepts into very basic issues for communities. So you should invite her.
No, I will invite you.
And I'm sure she will enjoy this kind of conversation.
No, I will invite you through you, because you are our ambassador. They say, just come and have lunch.
That's fine.
We have a lot of Chinese on this road.
Okay.
We have a lot of, I think, they say, no two white people can produce anything other than white. Have you ever heard that one?
Yes, but that's a reality. Eh?
Yeah. And that's an opinion. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.